Thank you for listening to the Drums and Rums podcast. If you'd like to help support the podcast and our content on YouTube, become a Drums and Rums Patreon member, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel as we work to get towards 1,000 subscribers. Links are listed in the description of this episode. And thanks again for checking out this episode and all of our other past episodes. Hey all, it's Paul from Drums and Rums with the Backbeats Meets the Spirits. You know, I got a lot of questions about, again, I always bring this up because everyone thinks I'm do more rum drinking than I actually talk about drums, but we've got a hard-hitting episode here, and looking forward to chatting. We've been trying to, kind of line up schedules and so forth, and so this is really going to be cool. So let me get to it, and let me introduce the podcast, Scorpion Percussion endorsed drummer for the band CloZure, Michael McCann. How you doing, Michael?
Good, brother. How are you doing, man?
Good. There. So there we go. I got you on camera now. There. All right. So you looking very chill, right?
Yeah, brother.
So yeah, no, I'm glad we finally, got to catch, schedule and crazies, and we're gonna get into all the reasons why. But we got you here, right? That's the important thing, and I'm excited to talk about you. I've been listening to a lot of the music there and checking out the videos, so I got a lot of talk to you about. Want to learn more, and obviously that's why you want to come on and again get the word out there about the band and some of the stuff you're working on and projects. And again, I think it was it a couple weeks ago, which we'll get into, the little teaser here, so you got to stay in the podcast a little longer to learn more about it. Is you just shot a video recently too, right? So there's so much to talk about it here. So, but if you're listening and you're what we call the rummer, right? So you're the type of person that maybe not a drummer, but you're on the other side of this whole deal where you're more into the rums. This guy drinks rum too. So he's a drummer and a rummer. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So we're going to kind of open up the mind. But you know what, Michael, before we get started, speaking of rum here, so I'm going to turn around here. I'm going to grab myself a glass. And because you are a rummer and I feel like this is a special occasion here, I'm going to crack open some of this nice Havana Club 7, some Cuban rum here. So shh, don't tell anybody. There we go.
I'd be joining you, or I've got work here in a little bit, or I would definitely be tapping one myself.
I know. So we're not going to get into those things. We're not going to divulge a whole lot of information here. I know why, but I appreciate you. I totally understand. Hey, you know what, Michael? I'll drink for you. How about that?
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers. So yeah, man, I'm glad you finally, like I said, we finally lined up the podcast episodes and typing and so forth. And yeah, it's just it's been a crazy time, and let's just get right into it. So you were born in Louisiana, right? So in New Orleans, right? So I'm sure a lot of the reference to your opening track there on this on the CD or on the release there. I was getting all the references to the Bourbon Street Angels, and I was like, because again, I only had recently finally visited New Orleans back in 2016, and a band that I was in, one of the guys had wrote some similar song and references to like New Orleans and Bourbon Street and hand grenades and things like that. But like I said, I knew more about it, the hand grenades, and I finally showed up and like, oh, okay, this is what it is, and this will get you really effed up, right? So, so if you're not familiar with hand grenades, it's a cocktail that is so jacked up with rum, high proof, crazy, a lot of sugar in this stuff. It's in a plastic tube apparatus drinking container that's at the bottom of the shape like a grenade, and it's one that you just kind of it's frozen, right, Michael? Typically,
yeah. So they've got them over ice, or you can get them frozen.
So you can walk around Bourbon Street all night sipping on that thing, and then the next morning you won't even remember you were on Bourbon Street, right? That's how the story. That's how the story goes, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, you kind of grew up in Oklahoma, but now you call Alabama home, right? And as we were just talking about before we hit the record button, is almost Florida, right? You're pretty closer to Florida.
We're right there. We're right there. We're about an hour, about 45 minutes of the border. But we're about an hour and 15 from Destin, Fort Walton
Okay.
Beach. So we like to go down there. We've got family down there.
Got it. So is it so you now I can never remember exactly where um on the again because Florida is so screwed up as usual. That's why we have Florida man. Where the time zone is, right? So you're right because Alabama is east is central, right? I think that's
Sure. To be honest, man,
I
it all kind of blows together. I know right now at home it's 6:38 a.m.
okay. So you
or
got
p.m.
got it.
So
Okay. So you're right. So you are in central time. You're an hour behind. Would be behind yeah. So I know you're not there at the moment, but you said we're not going
yeah,
to need to get into that. Um,
right, right.
but don't worry. It's nothing secretive or whatever. Just things that we don't need to talk about. Okay, it's not important to this podcast and our guests. So just don't worry about it. So yeah. So I mean, all right. So you're as I said, we've already introduced you here as a drummer. You know how? Let's start from the beginning. How did you get into music?
Yeah, so honestly, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. Was raised there for a little bit, but for the most of my childhood, we were in Oklahoma. So I started going to a church and started playing with a youth band. And we started, doing that, playing, and we got an opportunity to open for a major heavy metal Christian group called Disciple. Really great guys. And that really kind of opened my eyes from not just playing at church to performing and getting out in front of the crowds. And it's not, when you take away the church event from the primary reason for going to church and praise and worship and all that stuff, there's a respect thing sort of there,
Mm,
Um, whereas when we opened up for these guys, even though they were a Christian group, man, it was just a party. It was a concert, and that was the first concert that I had ever gone to, and I was playing. So it really just opened up my eyes. And that was, I think I was probably 14 or 15 when that happened. So really ever since then, it just lit a fire under me, man.
mm.
And it just, there's been times in my life where I've had to, put my drumming to the side and I guess focus more on the rum side of things, but yeah, I mean, ever since then, it's just been something that, stuck with me and I've loved it, man. It's a passion of mine for sure.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that the church was very fundamental in your music up I don't say upbringing or career or into your drumming?
Yeah, I mean, the lead guitar player and there was another drummer, a really good friend of mine, Luke Schrader, who wound up actually kind of helping me get started, teaching me a few things right off the rip. But yeah, it really absolutely molded me. It really opened up my eyes when we saw Disciple play, and I saw a group of Christian guys up there screaming and headbanging, and I had just never seen that. At that time, the heaviest thing I had heard was Breaking Benjamin or Chevelle or something, and I
Right.
dug it. I just didn't, it wasn't I didn't know how to play that kind of style, and then those guys played, and it was like, holy crap, I can really do this too. So it was fantastic.
So so then well I'll wait to get into to bridge the question about the band here in a minute. Um but yeah, I guess do you recall like even some of the bands and uh Striper was probably the biggest Christian band, right? And to know, or well, at least being known as a Christian band, right? So that was
Right,
very
right.
many ago. So, but again, at that time, um, I mean, were you familiar with that, or is this was just kind of the first
I
exposure?
wasn't.
Okay,
Yeah, I was raised very you know, conservative. We took Power Rangers out of the house, you know what I mean? Because there was some demonic tendencies there, it was uh so I didn't, we called non-Christian music in my house at that time secular music,
mm,
and so then we started with DC Talk, and that was another influence of mine initially. The new metal kind of sound with the rap and the
right, yeah,
rock kind of thing. Toby Mac and all those guys, Skillet, POD. Those folks really started becoming more
yeah,
influential. The more time I started playing.
okay, yeah, and that's and again another reference to when we get to talking about the band is I listened to some of the music is picking up certain uh I'm glad that when I kind of make some references, some of the influences that I hear, I think it kind of falls into the issue you're talking about there is that time frame of late '90s, early 2000s, some of the music there. So
Right.
yeah, so yeah, so then I mean, I guess then from that perspective, then how did you end up landing into the drums? Right, it was we all know drums is probably one of the hardest instruments unless you haven't come from a musical family. It's very tough to convince your parents to let you play one of the loudest instruments, right? That does not require
Right.
amplification.
Yeah. So, I mean, other than the school band, drums aren't cheap either, So, I was 13 or 14, and my dad, for that birthday, brought home a drum set for me, and it was kind of just crazy out of the blue. He had heard me play at church, and it really kind of meant something to him that I was. He'd always enjoyed drums, but he just never had that gift. He never could, moving all four limbs once is tough, and so it was never something he was able to pick up. But he appreciated the fact that I was, and so jumped through water to figure out a way to get me a drum set. I grew up with, six brothers, so there wasn't a lot of extra when I was growing up. So he made that happen, and got me that first drum set. And it was a little percussion plus drum set, nothing crazy, but it was mine. And I beat the crap out of them things as long as I could. And, now I've got a few endorsements, and it's crazy how that transitions from a little dreamer, and I'm still dreaming, for
Right.
sure, but it's crazy how that transitions.
Yeah, and it as it's the starting point. It doesn't, and as you right, it's just said it got you started, it got you to where you need to move, and thankfully, you know, it didn't prolong, getting into it, or you losing interest in that time. And again, yeah, having that support of to be able to, but you're right. I mean, we know as drummers that guitarists can go crazy with all sorts of other amplifiers, pedals, guitars, and so forth. But at the end of the day, I almost equate it sometimes to like hockey, right? If your kid's growing up and they want to play goalie in hockey, that's probably the most expensive position that they want to play.
Right.
So yeah, drums is not only just the drums, because right, most of the time, drums when you buy them, they're just the shell pack, and then okay, oh, you want hardware, oh, you want cymbals, oh, you want this, and this, right? So yeah, totally understand. Yeah,
Heads and sticks and all
yeah.
that jazz. It's a reoccurring cost at that point.
So yeah, so talk about the exposure there to a bit from the church setting is I mean, how did you go from there? Did you start taking lessons, or was it a lot of self-taught? I mean, how did you kind of continue the craft and take it a little bit more further than, hey, I want to play drums and
Sure. So initially, I'd gotten a few lessons from, like I said, a friend of mine, Luke Schrader. He was one of the drummers for the main services on Sundays. And he played some percussion stuff. He was a great friend of mine, but he started, kind of teaching me the ropes a little bit. When you hit the cymbal, you hit the bass drum at the same time. Just those kind of nuances. Hey,
right?
get a pocket feel and stick to it. Let's put a metronome on, and you're not doing anything else. And so, it was that kind of stuff. But other than that, I am 100% self-taught.
Okay, okay,
So it was really just kind of, this is what a tom is. This is what your floor tom is. Um, but after, a little bit of time, I took it and I ran with it. YouTube wasn't a thing when I was, growing up. So it's not like you could find how-to videos. It was you put your favorite track on and you just beat the crap out of them until you figured out, okay, that sounds similar or it doesn't.
yeah, a couple of, I think it was a couple of podcast episodes ago. There was a reference to like the YouTube back in where you didn't have the luxury of being able to watch somebody else since everybody records everything they do, and go back and
Right.
watch drum covers, or and again for us the guitars, other music, who cares? But yeah, drums, right, is exactly that. Like somebody recorded themselves, and people now have really stepped up their game, and then some people have really just stepped up that they're pretty much just they're uh, I don't want to call them just YouTube drummers, but they pretty much that's all they do, right? They're doing covers, and
Right.
they can make money from YouTube and social media and all that stuff too. But yeah,
Sure.
it's definitely has been. I mean, I've used that as well too. I mean, for me being, maybe I assume a little bit older than you, but yeah, I still remember back when I was in high school with some of those. The only things you had was maybe a drum book, a video, VCR video, VHS. Okay, let me just make
Ooh,
sure. Let me throw. Let me
break
show
it
you my
old
age.
school.
Yeah, I'm gonna show my age now. We weren't even DVD yet. Uh, but yeah, now internet and streaming, etc. So, and again, online stuff, which is kind of crazy. So, yeah, so it's totally self taught, and then I guess from there, how did you go from some of the church setting into hooking up with other people to? I mean, how do you take it from the church into continuing? Like what's that timeline from the church to where you're at now?
Sure. So I joined the military. Um,
Thank you for your
and that
service.
was really a thank you. That was a big break in the drumming time. Being in the military, that is what your focus is, the deployments and all that stuff. But I still tinkered around with it a little bit. It was never anything that I fully got away from. We'd go out to a bar on a Friday night and they'd have a cover band up there, and I'd throw my hundo just to get on the set. Let me play a song. You know, um, and I was that guy. I missed playing so much.
Right.
And so finally, after a long time, many, many years of not really playing steadily or, really just playing around with it. I started playing again at Fort Rucker. I was out of the military at that point. This is very recently, about 3 years ago.
Mhm.
I moved, got a job back at Fort Rucker, and a buddy of mine, he came up to me and he said, "Hey man, I know this band CloZure. They're auditioning for drummers. They're kind of serious. They've played for some, opened up for some bigger name things. What do you think?" And I said, "Well, one, I'm not really in a position right now to give somebody that my dedication. And two, I hadn't really seen anything in the local area that was like, okay, I don't want to be a cover band. I don't want to just play
Right.
covers. That was kind of boring to me." And so I went. I, you always shoot yourself in the foot for the chances you don't take, right?
Yep, for sure.
So it all kind of lined up perfectly. I didn't even have a kit at the time, and that same buddy of mine was like, "Hey, look, my old kit, my Sonar Phil Rudd Special Edition kit, um, was up for sale. A buddy of his bought it from him, and then realized drumming wasn't for him, and so it just kind of fell in my lap, super cheap." And so I took that kit, bought some cymbals and some hardware, and I practiced for about a month, and on the songs that they wanted me to learn, which one of them, nope, I lied to you. That was not Bourbon Street. Yeah, oh yeah, it was. I'm sorry. It was Bourbon Street Angels was one of the audition pieces. And that really kind of spoke to me for obvious reasons because was born in New Orleans. And when I went in audition, I just told them straight up, I said, "Well, if this is as serious as I've heard it is, I don't want to be a cover band. I'm ready to go. If you were not going to do something with this, then, and I'm not going to waste your time. You guys are going to waste my time." And that was probably not the best way to go in an audition. I told them straight up, I said, "If this is a serious thing, you're my band, not the other way around." And again, probably not the best way to handle that situation because they had some really great drummers that it came in audition. And it worked.
Mm.
Mike Cordell, who was the lead guitar player, he's an ex-military guy, and he liked that brash approach. Like I was gonna take what was mine, and there wasn't anybody that was gonna stop me, and he absolutely loved that. And so the rest is kind of rock and roll history, man. We've been together for almost 3 years now, and it's just taken completely off.
That's
We were under 1,000 followers 3 years ago, and now we're over 20K.
yeah,
So
that's that's awesome. Yeah, to
it's
keep
been crazy.
and let's well, first I'm gonna guess here because I don't think you've told me this, but you were in the Marines.
No, I was an
Oh,
Army guy. My dad was in the Marines.
okay. Well, I don't know. We were talking about the brashness because I figured it must.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was an Army guy. My
Uh,
dad was in the Marines, so again, that kind of stuck with me.
yeah,
My
yeah.
dad, had always said, "If you want something in life, nobody's
Gotta
going to give it to you. Go
gotta go
get it."
get it. Yeah. So yeah, three years. Um, so you joined the band 3 years ago, or the band's
Mhm.
been together. Okay, so the band's been together longer than 3 years then.
But yeah, quite a bit longer.
Okay.
But it was mostly a lot about covers then.
Okay.
They were doing quite a bit of covers. Really, just it all kind of fell in place because it wasn't just me. Matt, our guitar player, had just started with the band. I want to say probably 6 or 7 months beforehand, and he was crucial, I think, for me really picking that up because he's an original guy. He wanted to do original music.
Right.
And Chris, our bass player, had just come back to the band right after I had joined. So we really got all the pieces at that time that we really wanted um, to get together. And now we've got a new singer, so now we're transitioning again. So
Okay. So, you know, the timing here, as you explained, 3 years, right? So and I know they always talk about episodes of podcasts. You don't want to kind of make any time frame reference, but because then it doesn't end up being evergreen, right?
right,
But and again, I'm just trying to give the frame of reference here. So, right, this episode is taped in 2023, early 2023. And let's back this up here for folks. Again, I'm also trying to unpack this as well.
gotcha.
3 years ago, 3 years ago was COVID.
Yep,
And, you throw all that in there um, and it's kind of, crazy. So to go through it, I'm always over the last 3 years, any band, musician, brand, company, etc. I've always been, interested in ask them, how they're making through it. How do they do it, right? And again, similar there too. Here you just joined a band, and again, timing wise, I'm sure it's probably right around lockdown and so forth.
yeah,
Is
just started.
Yeah. So I mean, how did you guys kind of still kind of keep, was it still kind of a little loose, or I mean, you still kind of keep going? Now, again, depending where you are in the country, for those that are listening, in the U.S., there was kind of different levels of certain things. We'll just kind of say that we don't get into the crazy, all that stuff that the last 3 years,
Right.
so forth. But yeah, I mean, how did at that time? I mean, you just joined a band, and now boom, lockdown started happening, right?
Yeah, it was tough, man. I mean, especially being around the Fort Rucker area, which is a very big military town, there was a lot of restrictions. So we had to stop having practices at stop. Because I was working on the post there and the base. And so it was like, guys, I mean, we can't risk our day jobs right now because this isn't self-sufficient.
Right.
And Mike, the lead guitar player, he also works on the bass. And so it was like, we kind of got our hands cuffed pretty quickly. Um, I mean, we kept at it. I mean, we did a lot of FaceTime and, hey, this is what we're going to do. As far as writing style, and that really kind of helped us write individually and kind of perfect our craft and get better as individual musicians to put it together versus just going out and playing.
Right.
We were able to really kind of focus on ourselves and the things that song needed that I couldn't do at the time because I'd been out of playing for so long. Well, now it's a piece of cake. So that I really, that was a great benefit for us to really be able to fine tune those personal skills.
Right. I think I had joked back then, either towards the end of 2020 or something. I made a reference to, with all the lockdown happening and people doing a lot of remote shows or things from home and whatever, is since, a lot of musicians, whether it's full-time musicians or regardless, there's a lot of woodshedding that's going on. So when things open up here in Florida, there is going to be a lot of goddamn good musicians if they've done their homework because they got nothing else
Yep.
to do, right? Except unless they start an OnlyFans page, um, you know. But yeah, but to your point, you're
$20 is $20, brother.
That's great. So that's it. That's the name of the podcast. $20 is $20, y'all.
There you go.
And but yeah, everyone took their time, and in a lot of bands, it was a very difficult time, especially for like a lot of friends I have here in South Florida that are full-time musicians. How do they keep their livelihood going? And I said not to get too much into it, but That's great because as what you described there, Michael, was definitely something. I know a lot of people may hear me over say this over and over, but I think it's so important to kind of get people. Musicians get it, but those that are the casual listeners maybe, who are or may not be musicians or whatnot. I always say, for me, I learned this unfortunately later in life is musician first, band second, right? If
Yep.
you want to make a career out of being a musician, make sure you're the best damn drummer that's out there. Because some band will eventually, you'll get gigs and work and so forth. Bands will come and go, and but that was an interesting description of during that time period of during lockdown that you guys went to woodshed, you kind of worked on your things, you kind of kept the ball rolling. You knew eventually we would hopefully get out of all this, get actually back to practicing, actually back to the game plan, and so forth, and that's kind of really interesting. So
That
where is
really hit us in the mouth too, because I mean, we missed out. So Summerfest is in Michigan. We played there last year, but we had an invitation 2 years ago to go play and open up for Blacktop Mojo and a bunch of bigger names. And Matt, our guitar player, got COVID, and so we had to bow out. And that at that point was by far the biggest show we were going to play.
oh man,
And so, it sucked. It sucked. Thankfully, though, this year we're going back to Summerfest with Blacktop and the Lonely Ones and those
awesome.
guys. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. So is that festival tied in with Scorpion in any way? I thought they've had some type of festivals or
I don't
yeah,
think
no,
so.
okay.
Not that
Okay.
I'm aware of.
Okay.
Um, could be. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just not. I'm not sure.
Right, right, right. So yeah, so now okay, so now we got through that. There 3 years ago, jamming, playing, and then the current release here, CloZure, self-titled,
Mhm.
album. There is it albums anymore? CDs, tracks? I don't know what it releases. I know song
Sure.
Grammys was last night. We were trying to look up again as usual. What's the difference between album of the year versus uh I forgot what the other one was. Not song of the year, but anyway. Um, but yeah, so six, 7 tracks, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
when was that all recorded?
So that was recorded. So that's actually a process. So I tried to do some recording over here.
Mhm.
That didn't work. The tracks didn't line up. So we wind up starting to record in January of last year
Okay.
and didn't finish until I want to say May or even June. By the time it was actually finished just recording, and then we went through the mixing and mastering and all that stuff. But we released a few singles to go along with the album, so that way we had some kind of professional content out there. But yeah, it was a lot longer than normal process for sure to just record an album. It was a long time, a painful process for
Right.
sure.
Right. So and yeah, and again, you're back in at least the studio, and I've done a little bit of recording, and yeah, it's as we all know, the drum tracks are supposed to be laid down first and then built and
Right.
so and so forth, and it can be when we hear the stories that bands go into the studio and they bang out 10 songs, but again, they're also not have anything else going on in their life. They don't have life, mow the grass, do family stuff, and and all those things that you hear about. And as independence, there's a lot more that time and that goes into it. So, um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, and was that all recorded locally there in Alabama where you guys are at?
Yeah, we got a great guy in Montgomery, Alabama, Strident Studios. His name's Cope. Recorded some serious names in the game. And so we just kind of fell upon him. He had moved from LA to Montgomery and kind of opened up his own studio there, and it just all kind of worked. Our new lead singer now knew him from a long time ago, and did some recording and stuff with him. And our bass player knew who he was, and so he reached out and was like, "Hey, this is what we're looking at doing." And so it really worked out well. He did a great job for us. He's doing the recording for the new stuff we've got coming up as well. So
Cool. So and this is maybe a good segue into talking a little bit more about the band, is what kind of scene is there, hard rock metal scene is in Southern Alabama? Okay, let's kind of pause. Okay, for those that are listening, okay, Alabama is very southern, right? And
Very
right,
southern.
very southern. And again, I mean, I know as in geographical terms, I'm a lot more southern. Again, you've probably heard of those analogies, right? Yeah, Florida's more south than
Right.
but Florida's not
Absolutely.
more southern, and then Alabama and Georgia. Let's just kind of put that out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard youngins. How's your youngins doing in Florida? That's a very frequent question I get asked in Alabama.
Yeah, you definitely ain't hearing it in South Florida. Okay, I'll tell you that. Maybe North Florida, maybe you're gonna get it, but yeah, not South Florida. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
it's a whole nother ball game.
so yeah, so let's talk about that. Again, because are you playing a lot of gigs locally, or is it a lot? Is it he's just kind of recorded to kind of get use the internet and social media to kind of get things out there, or I mean, what's performance wise?
Sure. So initially, yeah, we absolutely did. We did a lot of local performing. They've got a lot of great talent here in the what they call the Wiregrass area. That's the area that I'm known. That the area that I live in is known as the Wiregrass area. A lot of great musicians, but it really wasn't what we played.
Hmm.
So as far as building our own niche right there at home, it wasn't going to happen. And so we really took our band to the next level when we started getting out of the area. Um, and down into Florida, we've
Hmm.
played in Tallahassee quite a few times. I mean, we just went on tour with THC and went up north to Ohio and Pennsylvania, Michigan. There's a great metal scene up in Michigan, rock scene up in Michigan. So really, we didn't take off as fast as or as predominant as we did until we started kind of really getting out of
Hmm.
the Wiregrass area. Um, and that's not a knock on any of the guys there. It's just not our
The
scene,
scene,
not what we
right,
play.
right. Yeah, there's very similar to here in South Florida where it's almost like if you're familiar with Florida, then I-4 that cuts
Mhm.
from Daytona to Tampa is anything south. There's not much of a metal scene or hard rock. Again, I know we get the whole genre discussion, but a whole
Right, right.
heavier scene in South Florida. Even though there's a lot of bands that did start, but yet there isn't. There's some good clubs. Again, if you guys ever, we could talk offline. Make some connecting the dots places maybe. There's a great place here in Pompano Beach. Shout out to Pipers. They have a lot of bands that come through. A lot of metal bands actually. A couple of drummer from they are a cover band is Angels of War. They're a great cover band, 80s, 90s hard rock, heavy metal song and stuff that they play are off. Anyway, so I'm getting way off track. But again, about the scene and um, so yeah, there's like in that sense, it's sometimes and it's great because you guys probably would like, well, if we aren't going to stick to what we want to do, we'll just go be a Leonard Skinner. Nothing wrong with Leonard Skinner now. Don't ever get upset, or
Right.
or an Allman Brothers band or something. Don't get again. No, I'm not knocking. I'm just kind of using a frame of reference. People don't send hate mail. Um, but yeah, you guys could have probably just eased into that and then kind of to play the bar band scene and so forth. But yeah, but you are an original band and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, we went down to Cape Coral
Okay.
and played down there, and we had a great turnout. I mean, that was at that point, that was the first real kind of outside experience, other than a few hours away. That was my first major travel because that was a good 10-hour drive for us. But man, when we got there, it was absolutely incredible. We had a great crowd. It was at a billiards pool
Hmm.
hall kind of place, man, and it was packed. We had a great time, and that's when I knew, for me anyway, personally, where it was like, all right, guys, we
This
really gotta branch out.
right. I think I'm very much. Was there an outside? Is it kind of more of an outside venue? Kind of like an overhang, kind of like a big open bay garage kind of thing.
Yeah, so they did have they had the outside. Yeah, the garage door was closed, but we
Okay.
played inside.
I'm
Um,
wondering, Michael, if it was very similar because the Bullet Boys, you remember from the '80s, the Bullet Boys name
whew,
roughly.
yeah,
It
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, so but they had just came through Florida and hit a couple places, and actually I think they played over in Cape Coral. I could be wrong, but you were in Cape Coral and you were so close to a rum place there called Wicked Dolphin. So we could talk more about
Oh
that in a minute,
no.
man. Yeah, see, look at all these places.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe you need to be you and me need to do the show together. I keep talking about again. I'm looking for sponsors on this show. I'm looking at the camera here. I said it in this last podcast that we talked about was I'm looking to do a show like Guy Fieri meets Sammy Hagar. We cruise around, we drink rum, and we go to music places and talk music. So there we go. There's our plug there. I don't steal my ideas. But anyway, so me and Michael are going to be cruising around in a Corvette or whatever, maybe. I don't know, a lifted truck, maybe, whatever. And
there
drinking
we go.
rum and listening to music. But yeah, so there actually was a place there in Cape Coral. So anyway, so I know that was a hell of a segue there, off track. But but yeah, so I was actually thinking of, again, listening to the music today, and definitely I think a good segue now, talk a little bit more is here in Florida. I mean, I'm like, damn, you guys would be fit real great into like the bike week scene. They got a lot of live music here in Bike Week in Daytona. I know it's probably a little too late because it's like practically next month and
Right.
March and then, but October, there's an Oktoberfest, Biketoberfest as they call it, and very similar. They've almost pretty much did like a Bike Week light, but later in the year.
Hmm.
And I remember catching up at the Harley Davidson dealership off of US One and 95. I saw in a very similar venue, right? It's an open air roofed kind of thing. I saw a Black Label Society and at the Hard Rock, geez, the Harley Davidson dealerships venue that they had out there. I'm like, well, this is kind of cool to see Black Label Society, and obviously Zach, the guitar Zach plays is like tiny. I don't know if he's that big of a guy and he plays tiny guitars or what, but he just seemed like he was just. It seemed so like he was overpowering, but yeah, I think you guys should
Yeah, we
definitely,
just saw
yeah.
those guys play too here in Enterprise, Alabama. They played at the plant, and me and Mike went and saw those guys live. And I know exactly what you mean. He's just larger than life, man.
All that hair going everywhere, and it's like you're not sure where
Yeah,
anything starts and stops, right?
yeah. I mean, the dude's a legend. I mean,
Yep.
jeez.
And now he's playing Pantera, right? So
Right, right.
yeah. So yeah, that's definitely something there. But yeah, so because the frame reference for those that are listening to the podcast again, if you haven't checked out, the band, go ahead and go and Google, YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, etc. CloZure, and I'll let Michael do all the shameless plugs at the end of the show here. But listening, again, listening to the music and I do get a little bit of, the like we talked about earlier with that time frame of late '90s, early 2000s, um, kind of style of music. Kind of there's some heavy stuff, right? I get a little bit of picked up of a little bit of crunchy, maybe a little bit of um, there's one song that kind of picked up a little bit like, is there a little bit of Alice in Chains influence? Picked up a little bit of Fuel. And again,
Wow.
I mean, I don't know. Tell me. I mean, again, you tell me what I guess some of some of the references or that people can kind of compare some of the music to.
Yeah, it's hard now because our singer has changed,
Okay.
and they are so drastically different. Jordan could scream, and he had a great scream voice along with everything else that he was able to do. Um, Whereas Josh, he is not a screamer whatsoever, but I feel like his melodies fit our style quite a bit more.
Okay.
So really, we're in a transition. When we went out with Texas Hippie Coalition, a lot of the references we kept hearing was Creed
Mm.
because of the
Okay.
way the way his
Yes.
melodies flowed with the music. So we get a lot of that now. And really it's any of those early 2000s, late 90s bands is everybody's like, man, you guys have that sound with current riffs
Yeah.
is a lot of the stuff that we hear.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that's why I try to be very careful because I know depending on who you talk to and then we were there was some sort of reference not that long ago that somebody had mentioned to me. We were talking about it, and it's like, again, I know that time frame of music. A lot of the heavier reference was, and I will disclaim, make sure I'm very clear. I'm not saying this is what you guys are, but I'm referring to the time frame is new metal, right? Which nobody even knows what new metal is, but even then, right? But again, that was what it was called then, right? Some of those kind of bands that came out, like you said Linkin Park, and some of that kind of style. But yeah, there's a lot of good hard rock. I mean, yeah, I think you know, pendulum swings, right? Right now, I see a lot of cover bands and a lot of music that I'm seeing out here locally. The '90s music is back, right? People, again, it's an age thing. I don't know, whatever it is, nostalgia thing. Again, there's kids that are younger than me, in their 20s, and want to listen to Gin Blossoms or Collective Soul. That's another good reference. I think Collective Soul, yeah, is I hear a little bit of that Collective Soulness right there. Collective Soul had a great range of, great band out of Georgia, right? And
Yeah.
the brothers, and they had some really good crunchy songs, and they had some good kind of different stuff, and that's kind of like some of the album kind of stuff you guys have in your self-titled release there. You got to get some good range of different styles of tunes.
Well, I appreciate it very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Very, very much.
So how's that some of that music writing style? Are you kind of like you're the drummer? It's like, yeah, we'll let you know when we need you, or I mean, are you kind of involved in it?
Yeah, so that's really the great. I think why we have been able to be as successful very quickly as we have is because we are all incorporated
Mm.
in our writing style. I don't write my drum piece without getting it checked off by them first. Matt, our guitar player, typically writes a lot of our stuff. Him and Mike are the two writers for sure. And so they'll write something and they'll send it to me. What do you think? And if I'm not vibing with it, we move on to the next one. But if it's something that we all kind of like, okay, maybe there's something there, then we start that process. And that is where that's what I love to do. I love the writing stuff. And it's such a fun experience because I'll send something and then they'll be like, Mike, that sucks. What are you doing? Change this, do this. Or I'll send them something and it's like, holy crap, Mike, you've outdone yourself now. Like, where did you come up with that? Like, that was fantastic. So it's a lot of side jabs for sure. Like,
Right.
we play with each other, playing around and bro, that was terrible. What are you doing? Like, but it is very much everybody's involved. And
Right.
that's the way we like it. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing for us.
Right. So I have a guess. So nomenclature is, or this is a public service announcement. I'm going to imagine, and I'm sure they don't want to get into the situation, but don't run into these guys and start trouble with one of them, because I'm sure they're all gonna, they're tight. And then, brother, again, I haven't met you guys actually, but I can almost already get the sense, and I'm especially, as you're describing that, Michael, it was about that song, that creativity process. It's probably it was a good thing that you were ex-military to have that thick skin, and
Right.
not to, and to be too, I don't want to say fragile, but I mean, again, you got to be pretty tough to kind of cut the military, right? And can be pretty
Yeah.
brutal, but your brothers and or sisters, they've got your back, and they love you as much, but you're going to get the shit,
Right. It's been great. I mean, especially Mike being in the military too. So we got two Mikes that were both in the Army that are in the same band. But really, we've kind of created a little band family, man.
Mhm.
I mean, we give each other crap all the time. Or when one's down, we try to lift each other up.
Right.
Matt and his wife, they just had two twins. They'd had two boys, and it was like everything stopped for us because our brother and his wife had some babies,
Right.
and so we really tried to focus on them for a little bit and give them that due attention. In the new music video we got, we're gonna take a focus on Matt. He is literally coming from the hospital to record this music video with the bracelet still on his arm from his boys, and so
Wow.
it's such a cool environment that we have together.
And that's as you know, is one of the most difficult things for people to musicians or again those that don't play music is how tough it is to want to be around people, to make music, to be comfortable with the give and take of life, um, and to be okay with it, not be afraid of some of the. Again, there's probably a lot of guyness going on, right? Band practice and so forth. But at the same time, it probably doesn't seem like I would imagine a whole lot of egos going on. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You just can't be successful in this business, and if you're stuck on yourself.
Hmm.
You just really can't. I mean, until you make it big, and then I guess that's where the ego really gets inflated. But you, unless you can connect with people, you're never going to do anything. And when
Yeah.
you've got those egos, you're never going to connect because they're going to see you and they're going to be like, all right, well, that dude's full of himself. Let's just keep on.
Right.
And it's just no way to build, a fan base or career at this point for us.
Right. Yeah. Unless it's okay if you are freaking super great and you know it and everyone knows you know it, but you don't have to rub it in there. If you're Prince, yeah, everybody, you're
Right.
good. Okay, you get a pass, right? You could be a dick,
Yeah. The
because we
one
know you're
man
good.
band himself.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
One man, yeah. But now that I look, as much as whether we have our lives are split up into home life, band life, and if you have a job, work life, right? There's many try to juggle things, the give and takes, and so forth, and you try to balance and again, try to have a good relationship with your family and your spouse, and then obviously have a good relationship with your band as you're making things, right? And then also being very open and upfront about certain. And I think it's important, as you probably would agree, communication, right? And being very
absolutely.
honest and upfront. And again, I think probably because some of it is with your military background, you're here. I'm laying it out there. I got no time to bullshit. Here it is, right? So
Yeah. And that's worked for us too. Now the team that we have supporting us is very much in tune with how we are. Our manager is a prior military over at MK Music. Um, Fantastic dude, but he's the same way we are, and it worked for us because again, we're kind of a black and white breed.
mhm.
It's either right or it's wrong. There is no gray area for us. And MK, it was tough, when you, especially in this industry, a lot of people like to play in that gray area sometimes, and that's just not us. And so, our team is very much the same way orientated with us as far as the mindset. This is what our goal is. How do we get there? You know, wash everything out. This is what the plan is. And so that's been another great eye-opening experience is having our team that supports the band is on the same wavelength. So again, it's just a bigger extension of our band, our band family.
So let's talk about a little bit more about the band. So as we were alluding a little bit to, was I know we've been trying to line up our schedules and so forth. And I think
Mhm.
initially when we reached out and we talked or connected, this isn't a dating app for drummers. Uh, but
Depends on how much rum we get involved with, right?
yeah, that's true. That's true. That's right. Yeah. And but yeah, let's talk about because the video, right? Because we were just about that time. I think we were trying to set the date a few weeks ago. But yeah, you guys just shot a video. What can you tell us about the video?
Yeah. So it's a brand new song with our. This will be the first content that we're putting out with our new singer Josh, who's fantastic. My gosh, sick talent, sick talent. But it's the song is called Foolish Man. And we did the video out in a. We wanted just a band playthrough this time. We had done, we've got our music videos where we had scripted scenes and some animation in another one,
Right.
and Bourbon Street's just a party song. So we had, Summerfest with Nonpoint and all those guys, for that tour video. But this, we just really wanted to focus on the band this time and getting more, I don't want to say recognition for each one of the members for what we're doing. And you could kind of put a name with the face,
Right.
you know? And so that was the focus on this one. We're still going through that process of editing and all of our stuff. Our promotion company's working hard on that. But it was fantastic. I'm very excited about this song. It's by far one of the best songs I've ever personally been a part of writing. There's quite a bit more drum stuff that's going to be involved in this one, as far as the 2/4 fraction fills with bass and toms, and so I'm super excited. There's some double
Awesome.
bass blast beats in there. I'm excited, very very excited.
So how does Paul get a sneak peek of the song?
Oh, I'll shoot it to you, brother.
Okay, all right.
I'll get you
Look at that.
taken care of. You
Membership
just have
has
to keep that on the low low.
the DL.
There you go.
Membership has its privileges.
That's right.
Awesome.
That's
No,
right.
yeah, and it's again, there's video making, right? Again, we're removed from the MTV era. Yes, MTV still exists, but it doesn't as it's now basically YouTube, right? And social media as it's moved to. And again, kind of, and I'll kind of, kind of narrate a little bit of some of the videos there. As you mentioned, right? Vow was one, right? That's one off the self-titled mask, right? That was, the animation that was kind of, crazy. And then also there was a more of a, like I said, I can't remember. I apologize. I don't remember seeing the. I've listened to the song, but I didn't see the Bourbon Street Angels. But yeah, the Vow, right? I mean, for those that you haven't seen it, kind of general idea, definitely go check it out, right, for yourself. Is like more of a like the story based, right? Let the videos kind of how and you guys are all dressed up, in the
Yeah.
church, right? And then the mask.
And I actually played the cheating man on that one. The guy that the wife has messes around with. I'm actually playing that character in the music video.
So let's ask that here, right? Because drummers usually are in the back of the stage, right? Nobody sees them, right? So this is it, ladies or guys. Be careful of the drummers. They're usually the one. Those are the ones you got to watch out for. The guys out.
Yeah, that was an interesting. That was the first music video I'd ever shot, and so we were going through this process with the hair and the makeup and all this crazy stuff. And then, as we're going through, the scenes, we're like, we don't have anybody that she's gonna cheat on him with, and I'm like, here we go. Already thinking like, crap, because we had actors that were part of the video, which were fantastic, and so our production guy came up and was like, well, Mike, let's do this. And I was like, whoa. So I had to get that signed off from my wife and, get her permission, because initially the scene was supposed to be a lot more involved than what it was, to kind of really cement the love making sort of thing, not to get too graphic into it, but, we wanted to portray exactly what was going on.
Right.
So when that all kind of transpiring, my wife was like, all right, I'm cool with the holding hands, but that's as far as this rig is going, and I was like, all right, happy wife, happy life.
That's right. All right. Well, let me ask. All right, how long have you guys been married?
So we've been married 6. Oh man, I'm gonna get in trouble.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine. So we've been married 4 years, and we've been together 6 years. I think that's what it is. She's gonna watch this, and I'm sure I'll get a text, but that's all right.
We'll edit it, but we'll edit in post.
If CloZure's looking for a new drummer, y'all figure out why.
Scandal.
Right.
No, but
she's been the rock, man. She supports this, with me, like, not to get into too far, but I don't work at home, so her taking care of all the babies, and then when I am home for tour, we tour when I'm home, so it's that there is no us time. So big shout out to her.
Yeah. So it's important to have a support system, and especially a spouse that lets. Okay, I'm a guy. I'm a man. I'm going to put it in this reference to that. Let the boys go off and play, right? Again,
Right.
there's a Kiss song that was written about that. It was the whole song about Christine, not Christine, uh, Beth, right? That was a whole song, the Peter Criss song, and which is
Right.
probably one of the most popular Kiss songs was sung by the drummer, right? As about,
Mhm.
a whole relationship about me and the boys and so forth. And but yeah, so big
I'll
shout
have
out
to
to
check that out.
yeah, so yeah, check out it's a very it's just him singing. There's a little bit of kind of more melodic. It came off of oh shit. I think it was just crazy sounds. I'm if I'm supposed to be a Kiss fan, I'm trying to draw on my memory here. I think it came off of the Destroyer album. So go figure on that, right? This album called Destroyer has the ballad that is probably one of the most popular Kiss songs, and again, all women love that song because it's so much he's singing to his woman. He's telling her how
Yeah.
much he feels he's missing her because he's out with the boys and this stuff and so forth. Anyway, so yeah, so there's there's those references. But yeah,
Awesome.
it's important. You're right. Again, we talked about that before. Like the home life, band life, work life is the communication, and there's give and take. And I'm sure she'd let you know when it's kind of maybe she needs a little bit of time. And
Well, that's,
yeah. So it's a big shout out to this, to your wife there to let you do
appreciate
what you
it.
want to do. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So because
It's, uh,
you're gonna be rich and famous, you're gonna be living in a mansion, and soon.
what I try to keep telling her, babe. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
And she's Puerto Rican, and so she's very much a realist, with how she is. So okay, babe, whatever, and I'm like, all right.
And I'm sure, like you with your military background, she doesn't. She lets you know how she feels.
Oh, right off the rip, right off the rip. Her and her mother have no problems telling me how they feel, but I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. Wouldn't change it for the world.
So I have to, again, it's not like I'm actually getting paid by these guys, but hold on. So let her know there, so there is this is actually a product here that's sold here in South Florida, or I guess distributed here in South Florida called Medalla Light. It is actually Puerto Rican beer, right? So let
Oh,
her
okay.
know, yeah. So maybe we'll try to get some up to you if she knows what it is, then let me know, and then if not, then I'm not sending you anything.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no. So yeah, so the we're talking about the videos. Yeah, so the new video, yeah. So yeah, that's kind of that's you know I think it's important. The bands want to, when you're watching a video, you kind of want to see the play. I mean, probably the biggest thing that comes to mind about seeing a band perform is like Guns N' Roses, "Welcome to the
Mm,
Jungle," right? How that was taped, and again, I
yeah.
know it was taped in different angles and all these things, right? But again, you're seeing a live performance, and actually, and again, I'm going to make a Kiss reference here. Is I don't know if it was Kiss Alive, it was the first one or second one, but one of the Kiss Alive albums was supposed to be live, like recorded live.
Hmm.
And actually, they got this crazy idea. And actually, it wasn't if. Luckily, they did this because because they weren't doing that great when they first came out, and I guess the producer, record company, etc., had this idea about, hey, let's release a live album. And I don't remember if they actually played live or was just uh, but what they added was they pumped in this additional sound from like crowd was all fake,
Mm,
right? So it made it sound like a much bigger crowd. Like wow, again because again pre-internet, right? And this is talking the '70s. People didn't know. You could bullshit them all you want because people couldn't validate and say call BS. And
right.
people got this album's like, man, these guys are listen to that crowd, and you kind of built up this hype, and again, we all know the Kiss is the machine of hype of all sorts of things, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's definitely but to see the live performance and see the bands, like talking about the Guns N' Roses there, the video, and yeah, that's kind of cool. You kind of get to see it stripped down and kind of real. Here's the band, and no no dressed up videos, right?
Yeah. No dressed up video. But this year we've got so much stuff going on, man. I mean, we've got this music video coming out. We're planning on another music video. We're planning on an EPK drop. We've got the 2 tours coming. I mean, it's insane. You know, we were talking about pre-COVID or, you know, during COVID, and now post-COVID. I'm just grateful for that everything's opened back up, and it's just been insane. You
Right.
know, getting back into these mixes and getting the routine of the festivals. You know, you got Pantera this year. Okay,
Yeah.
so who's coming back next year? Is it going to be Corn again? You know, it's just crazy, and I'm glad to see that we're getting back to that rhythm.
Right. Yeah. Hey, just again, think about future. Rockville is now at the Daytona Speedway.
Saw that. I saw that. I absolutely saw that, and that's right down the road from us. So
Yeah.
we're not going to be obviously in it this year. They've already,
Yep.
announced that
Right.
lineup. But do not be surprised if you don't see a little CloZure coming up.
You show up in Florida and you don't tell me you're going to be there. I'm going to be really pissed. All right, there you go.
Well, you're following the page, brother. So
I
we will
know,
absolutely
I know
keep you. We will absolutely keep you updated.
for sure. It's only about 2.5 hours north of me, and actually, it's funny is about that particular was when they announced it the first. I guess they announced that they were moving it from Jacksonville down to Daytona, and the first year was going to be 2020. Well, we all know what happened, right?
Right.
And so my brother and I we were going to go. Metallica was supposed to play 2 nights, 2 different sets, and we're like, all right, sure, and we've got family that lives nearby, so it wasn't like we had to, have to worry about lodging. And it canceled, as we all know. We just got our money back, so forget it. They redid it and so forth. So I still haven't committed. Last year, I heard the weather sucked. It was a lot of rain. And now, like this year, Pantera's supposed to play, White Zombie. There's a lot of I think Tool. I think Tool's playing. And again, it's like,
Tool, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
This year is huge. Yeah, last
yeah,
year, our old lead singer went down, and I want to say our guitar player Mike went down, and that's what they were saying. Man, it would have been so great, but man, the weather was just atrocious. They had to cancel a lot of the shows, and you know that it is what it is. That's part of playing outside. You know, you
right,
can't really be too upset at those guys. You know, but this year, I'm hoping it's live, brother. I think it'll be a.
yeah,
They've got some serious acts coming through this year for sure.
yeah.
So I think it'll be a great show.
Yeah, so like I said, definitely don't. I mean, don't just count out maybe even like a Biketoberfest trying to get in somehow there because there's a lot of places that are all over Central Florida that's got all sort of certain acts, even on Main Street. There and also too is again we could talk a little bit more offline about it. There is like a local Central Florida uh, original music festival, and I remember playing it. Oh, geez, what year are we in here? About 6 years ago, and they closed down Main Street right there where all the Bike Week stuff is. But it wasn't during Bike Week, but they closed down Main Street, and what they're promoting was original music. So they really didn't want you to play covers. They let you go away with maybe one. But there was all the different bars that were on Main Street. They had the different bands playing at different places. Like, all right, you might play here, you might play here, and we ended up playing in the outside stage of the Boot Hills, the famous Boot Hill Saloon, outside in the parking lot there. And then we had a second set a few hours later out in another bar that was right next to it. And it was again, it was a cool event. Check it off the list. I can
Yeah,
always say I've played on Main Street and whatever, and it was kind
for
of
sure.
cool. So yeah, I mean definitely yeah. You have any information you want to know? Just we definitely could talk afterwards about it. So for sure,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, before we go
What,
wrap up here, we definitely have to talk a little bit more about drums here. So your current kit is 4-piece Tama with some double pedaling action going on there, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's my dream kit, man. I mean, Star Classic is about as good as you're going to get in this world, and that the sound is incredible. I absolutely love them. Um, I'm an all DW 9000 series hardware guy. Um, and then my endorsement with my cymbal company is through Red Cymbals,
Hmm.
and they're a fantastic company out of Australia.
Hmm.
I was endorsed through Soul Tone previously,
Okay.
and started getting some information about Red, and we started kind of talking back and forth. And the message of Red Cymbals what really attracted me to them. And it was kind of like I was a little fish in a big pond with Soul Tone, as far as exposure. I mean, I was a nobody, right? I mean, they liked me. They thought I was talented. They gave me my endorsement. But that was about as far as that went. And I'm not talking trash on Soul Tone.
Yeah.
It's just that's the
Only can
nature
take
of the
you so
business,
far, right?
Right. And then Red, and me started really kind of talking back and forth. And so now it's like a little fish in a little pond. So there's a little more exposure there. But Dylan, who's the owner, he's a godsend. I mean, he's absolutely fantastic guy. You really need to get linked up with those guys too. He's just a super great guy. Really big emphasis on mental health for drummers, because a lot of people don't realize the strains of being a musician,
Right.
and the ups and downs. When you're playing on that stage, that's the climax of everything. But then it's like you go through these down times where you're not playing anymore, and it's like, oh crap, like now what do I do?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
so he's got a great emphasis on the mental health stuff to support the artist. But man, it's just been great, and they're a fantastic company.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you think it's somebody we need to talk with, I mean, again, as you know, I mean, I'll talk to anybody, and again, it's always that interesting conversation, and especially when it comes to drums, right? And I think that's an important part there is whether that this is one of the most it's not one, it's the most physical instrument that people can play.
Hands down.
And let alone from a physicality, and then your hearing, and there's a lot to it. And again, we have had other musicians and drummers on talk about some of that take body careness, right? When it comes to,
Absolutely.
right, posture. There was a drum damn, I'm gonna apologize, I'm drawing a blank on a name here. But there's a company, I guess, it was a drum throne that was designed by a chiropractor. And so again, it has the right kind of weight and balance and so forth. Why am I thinking Danny? Damn, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. I'm drinking rum. I'm blaming rum. That's why I can't
There you
remember
go.
right now. That's my reasons. But yeah, so those kind of things. Yeah, so yeah, we definitely can talk later, or pass some information over if he's interested in checking it out there. And then also too, you speaking of, right, some percussions there, shout outs there. So right, these guys too, right? So look at this. I've got my Venom grip sticks there, right? So big shout out to Scorpion Percussions there.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a good episode there. So yeah, so performing, so high tom, one low tom, kick, snare, and that's it. Keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. So so plans coming up here for the band, touring wise. You got dates again down, kind of
Yeah. So we're looking at the last week of May, into the first 3 weeks of June. So it'll be a month-long tour.
Okay.
And then the second tour will be August 11th into September. That'll be a month long, and that'll be tour number 2 for this year.
Okay.
So we've definitely got some dates already squared away. Some really great places. We're playing with Rehab and Scotty Austin. He was the lead singer after Jared Weeks for Saving Abel. And so now he's starting his solo stuff. So we're playing with him. And then Framing the Red, which is out of Mississippi. So we'll be playing with those guys. We've got a show with Modern Mimes, who's out of Florida. I don't know if you're tracking who they are. Female fronted band, really cool. So we've got a show scheduled with those guys, and then Love the Hate, who is another Mississippi band. I think we're all on that same ticket. So,
okay, cool. All right.
Got some big things, and then of course we've got Summerfest with Blacktop Mojo, The Lonely Ones, and Silver Tongue.
So definitely check out the website there for all the follow. Right, that's that again.
Yeah, please.
Mike gave me shit, right? So follow. I won't miss out, right? So he's there to give me a hard time about it, right? So anyway,
That's
you
right,
do the
man.
same. You do the same.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So yeah. All right. So all right, Michael. So you again, you're a fan of the podcast here. You've listened,
Huge fan.
so you know then what's coming up next, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's see what he's got in our 4 sips or less. All right. 4 beats or less. You know, it makes it because we're talking rum also here. Four beats or less here. All right. So Michael, you probably again, you know the first question. If you can listen to the podcast, you know the first question right off the bat here. We ask all the drummers in 4 beats or less, who's on your Mount Rushmore of drummers?
Gabe Helguera. Oh man. Rob Rivera, Morgan Rose. That's oh man, I'm terrible at this.
I'm gonna throw you a lifeline
Neil
here.
Peart.
Okay, all right. So again, I've some guests have asked me, it's like, well, it's my Mount Rushmore, so I can basically make it who and however many I want. And I'm like, that's fair. I didn't tell you only 4, but most people only think 4 because obviously there's 4 heads up on that mountain there. But yeah,
Right.
Morgan Rose, that's a new one. We haven't heard that one yet. And again, I don't think again, for as far as influence, there's people that know Seven Dust know he is very technical. That guy can play.
It's incredible.
But I don't think a lot of mainstream probably consider him because everyone's been very much knows about Neil and Buddy and and so on and so forth. But yeah, Morgan, that's a good one there. So I mean they've again another powerful band that's been around over 20 at least
5 years,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I remember going way back when they first came out. There's some of that shit, and it's not like most bands where they come out heavy and they kind of start easing it down a little bit. But man, they've kept it foot on the throat for 25 years. Yeah.
Well, and Nickelback came out and said, "Look, we would play with anybody, but we hate going after Seven Dust because Seven Dust is going to wipe the floor with you." And that's true. I've seen him play a couple times, and it is just an all-out show.
So
Absolutely incredible.
So maybe that's the problem with Nickelback. That's why people hate Nickelback because they've always
Could be.
We figured it out.
We have tapped the secret.
They've misunderstood the fact that Nickelback isn't a bad band. It's just that they've had to always follow Seven Dust.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Morgan, coming to the podcast.
Yeah.
All right. So so if Morgan comes on the podcast, Michael, I'll let you know. You can co-host with me. All right. How's that sound?
Oh my gosh. Don't tempt me with a good time.
All right. So question number 2, in 4 beats or less, what was your first concert?
I think Seven Dust.
Oh, okay.
Well, that I didn't play in with Seven Dust. The first one was obviously Disciple.
Right.
And I went and saw Deep Talk.
Okay.
But no, my first rock concert was Seven Dust.
Okay. Do you remember?
In Florida.
In Florida. Okay. So
in Orlando.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me try to think here when that must have been. So mid to late 90s, right?
Yeah. It was right. I want to say it was right at 2000. It was right after I joined the military. So probably 2006.
It wasn't part of like one of their Earth Day birthdays in Orlando, was it? Sometime in May timeframe?
No, it was right after they played at the Masquerade. And they came down to Orlando, Florida. They played at the Hard Rock in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
And so I went and saw them there. That was my first actual rock show I got to see.
So you were living up in Florida still at the time, right? Or how far did you come? How far to drive?
There I was in Texas. So from Texas to go there, a buddy of mine turned me on to them. I had never heard Seven Dust at that point. I was more of a mainstream rock guy, Breaking, Benjamin, Chevelle, that kind of thing. And he was like, dude, you got to come check these guys out. He knew I listened to the drummer. He's like, you got to come check them out. These guys are freaks. And so I was like, where's this at? So we took a 4-day weekend and we drove, I think it was 16 hours in one day, went and saw them. We stayed 2 nights and then drove 16 hours all the way back to Fort Hood, Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
With a lot of rum involved.
Of course, you've to make that drive, and again, I'm sure make, as they say, Making memories, right?
There you go.
So
There
here's
you
the
go.
bonus. Here's the bonus question. Which, again, since you spent 2 days in Orlando, what was your favorite ride at Disney or Universal?
So we didn't go to Disney that trip. I've actually gone though to Disney with my family when I was younger. I'm an old school guy, man. I love Magic Kingdom, and I just think there's something special about that for the kids, and that's what Disney's designed for.
Yep.
Universal's more for the adult time, but
Yeah.
Disney's that's the baby's times. That's the kids' time, and I'm just an old school Magic Kingdom, the little 100 places around the world or whatever you call it
Yep.
ride. I think that's there's something special about
Yep.
it.
Wow. That now that yeah, what Seven Dust wasn't coming to Texas? Is that what the problem was, or
No, I just he his dad actually wound up buying him tickets and bought for the wrong venue. And again, you got to remember this is 2006, 2007, so
be,
it's not like
right before the internet?
Ticketmaster was
Right. Yeah.
right. So he actually bought tickets to the wrong show and couldn't get a refund on it. And they were like $200 a ticket or $150 a ticket, something
Yeah.
crazy like that. And so he was like, I'm not driving all the way to Orlando. And so that's when my buddy reached out and he was like, bro, you want to go? And I was like, let's go, man. Forget it.
Yeah.
So we did.
Don't need to twist my arm and have a good time.
Shoot no. Shoot no.
And for those that don't understand, Florida is a huge state. If you connect it from the bottom where the tip of Florida is, in this, as my day, anybody in Florida that has to go up and draw on a white erase board or chalkboard the state and what draw the outline of the state always hates it because of course it looks exactly what everyone thinks it looks like. So
Yeah.
my point is from the tip of the bottom of Florida to out to the edge of the Panhandle. Florida is a huge state. I mean, from how long it would take you to get from Miami, I'm not even talking to Key West now, from Miami up to Jacksonville is at least 8 hours. And then again,
Yeah.
you're probably close to about 8 hours, right, going in the other direction to get to at least from the Alabama Florida state line.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a trip, man. It was making memories for sure.
Making memories.
For sure.
Definitely one for the scrapbook.
Absolutely.
All right. So in 4 beats or less, question number 3 here. What song? And again, what song would you want to cover? Now, I know you guys are original band, but what was one song that if you had an opportunity to put it on, a release, what would be the cover song you'd want to do?
So I'm a big I Prevail fan. Gabe Helguera, obviously, one of my favorite drummers. And I like what they did with a very mainstream Taylor Swift song, and they turned it into a rock song. That really kind of put them on the map as far as mainstream music goes. And so we're actually already in the process of doing that. We're going to take a very mainstream song and we're going to cover it and turn it into a rock song. And I will give you the name of the artist, but I won't give you the song. But it's going to be a Post Malone song. So we're going to take one of his songs and we're going to turn it into a rock cover.
Okay.
It's something that I'm really excited about just because I had never, again, this is a new writing style for me. To take something that's very R&B laden and to turn it into rock. So I'm excited about that challenge. So that
Cool.
for me is a bucket list.
Cool. And and somebody asked me that it was like, songs that you make it your own. I'm like, I always find it, yeah. And there's like a guest, one of the podcast alums we have on, Shanice, and she also is part of a ukulele duo. And they do some crazy cover. They did a cover of Muse cover, and I'm like, why does the song so sounds so familiar, right? But they made it their own. But yet it's like one of those, the light bulb goes off. It's like, holy shit, that's this, and they made it their own kind
Right.
of style, which is always I always love that a band takes it to kind of makes it their own way, and again, there's a big debate. Either you play it exactly the way it was recorded, or you make it your own. But cool. No, looking forward to that. All right, yeah. I mean, and Post Malone, and during the pandemic, I remember he did a live stream in his house, and I think Travis Barker played drums, and I think they did a whole like Nirvana kind of set or something. Again, I'm trying to think about 3 years ago, and I was like, All right, I wasn't a big Post Malone fan because I didn't really know much about him because not as much into R&B. I will listen to R&B, as I get exposed to it. And I think props to him for okay, he can play guitar and he can do his songs and he, in influenced by Kurt Cobain and Nirvana and so forth. So yeah, it's a big
Right.
prop. So yeah, looking forward to that. That's awesome. So
Yeah,
looking
I'm
forward to
excited.
keep track of that. So all right, so you ready for the tough one of the night here? Number 4
Do it.
in 4 beats or less. What rum goes in your rum and coke?
Ooh, there's so many. I am. I'm one of those cheap rum guys. Like I'm a big fan of Kraken or Sailor Jerry's.
Okay.
I like the spiced rums.
Yep.
If I'm gonna mix it with Coke or something, obviously I like the clear stuff. But man, I really dig the Kraken or even some special stock, special reserve Captain.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm really getting into the rum here. So
Okay.
when I get home, I will be sending you a bottle of that.
Okay.
So
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. We definitely need to meet up there. We need to uh I've maybe I got to take some bottles over to my practice space. I've got my drums over there and obviously you
nice.
can see what's behind me here and
Oh yeah,
for sure. So let me know when you're ready to yeah, it's right. Again, you're where you're at. Again, we won't kind of get into, but there's a world. And actually, I know you're going to be jelly, but actually later this week and again, I'm blowing the timing frame of when we're actually taping this episode, but I'm later this week. I'm going to the Miami Rum Congress. So it's a 3-day event down in Miami
holy crap.
where they talk about different rum and all sorts. There's a seminar, and then there's actually the tasting part of it. Oh, and by the way, it's in Miami.
Yeah, great problem to have, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're
Yeah,
like the rum connoisseur, though, brother. Like that's what. Like when I first, a buddy of mine sent me your page, and he was like, "Bro, this was literally made for you. You are a drummer who only drinks rum. Like, check this dude out."
yeah.
And so,
Hey,
like,
kudos to your buddy there for
yeah,
passing that.
man,
That's the kind of that's what you want as right as any. You want people to help spread the word, right? Your message, right? Yeah.
absolutely.
Shout out
So
to
then
you.
I saw your post, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Holy crap, this is real! Like, this dude is really talking about drums and rum. Like, this was made for me." And so, but then when I started paying attention to your podcast and like watched him, I was like, oh man, this dude's on a whole nother rum level that I'm not sure if I'm ready to break off yet. I only drink rum. I am a rum only guy, but you were like it's like going to a wine tasting show with somebody who has never gone versus the guy who's been 25 times and they're like, doing all the whisking, the tasting, like I'm just there to drink some wine and have a good time, man.
Oh, hold on. You mean like this?
Right. Yeah, all that crazy swell it in your mouth and like oh like I'm ready for that box wine. Let's do this. Let's have a good time.
You mean like this here?
Holy crap. Yes, exactly.
ABC baby. I haven't done a review.
There
I
you go.
haven't even opened it up yet. Yeah, it was of course it was on like their clearance table. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to get this just because it was like it's called Box Tails minted mojito, 12.5%. It's like wine, the people that get buy the wine in the box, I'm like, all right, we're gonna give this a try here at some point here.
Whew. That could be a long night right there, my friend.
But yeah, no, again, I always and to the point is, I've started to when I started out in the podcast is I didn't know how to quite approach the two things here, and again, a lot of times the rum part puts off a lot of drummers that would
Sure.
like to have on because maybe they're in recovery or there's a connotation, etc.
Right.
And which kind of sucks. But I tell them, it's like, we're not always talking about rum there's some that are purely drum podcasts and there's some
Yeah.
that are maybe both. And then sometimes that are purely rum podcasts.
Sure.
And again, it's catchy. It's play on words. And as I've journeyed through this, I've also, I've kind of also, I've learned a lot. I will still drink, different things. I, won't- you know, but again, I try to maybe, kind of talk up and make more awareness of other things that are out there. will I still go to the tiki bar on the weekend because the special is a Captain Coke? Sure, you know, it's super simple,
Right.
whatever, right? And I'm not that much of a snob that I won't say no to it because it's very rare that I'm not going to find, like right behind me there, I can see in the camera there, a plantation rum, right? There's very few places
Right.
that you're going to find some upper scale stuff or some of the other stuff behind me, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
so I've always felt like there's other podcasts that are out there. I want to definitely give a shout out there if you're listening to. Check out the Rumcast. John and Will do a great job, definitely taking you into the as what I call the deep end of the pool. I've accepted the fact that I'm okay wanting to hang out in the shallow end. I want to bring people in, and then once we're in the shallow end hanging out, if you want to take it further, go out onto the deep end and take you further into if you want to take it further. Try Jamaican rum, try the funky stuff, and all these things.
Right.
And like my wife, she's a rum and coke girl, and she'll do her Captain Cokes and all those things, but she still hasn't quite take that leap a little bit into the funky stuff, or rum from Guyanese, or from other parts of the world. And it's like, man, this
Right.
is some really great stuff. Anyway, so yeah, so we come to Florida. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna definitely play drums. We're gonna drink rum, and yeah, so I have a place you can
Sounds
hang
like a
out
plan.
there. My practice space has a futon and a bathroom and drums and a fridge. So there you go, man. You got it
That's
made,
all you
man.
need.
That's right. That's
That's
all you
all you
need, man.
need.
And air conditioning, right? Yeah. So that's
Oh,
in Florida. That's important.
that's better than New Orleans. In New Orleans, you can't get air conditioning.
So all right, Mike. So thank you for again playing our in 4 beats or less, our rapid fire segment here. You are now part of the alum here. So there you go. We'll get this out to you
Oh,
there.
man.
So there you go. Again, it's only our shirts that we give out to the alums. Again, he is a little token, part of the, as I call it, the Drums and Rums alums now, part of the family here. We've got guests that are all the way out in Singapore and Australia, up to Canada. Jared from Drumeo, he's been on the podcast. All sorts of guys that are also in the rum industry. So again, it's all part of the connecting the
Appreciate it.
dots. Yeah. So as we wrap up here, Michael, again, here's our shameless plug segment here. What do you want the people to listen to and check out for you or for the band, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, just give us a chance, man. Give us a follow. Pay attention to us for a little bit. We're not for everybody. Everybody's not for us, but we love everybody. There isn't a person out there that we don't want our music to be able to touch. So give us a follow on Facebook, IG, YouTube, Spotify. We've got it all. And we're very interactive. We do not respond to anybody. You send us something or you comment or like or whatever, we know, and we're going to respond, and we love that interaction. So give us a yell.
Cool. All right. So, yeah. So definitely check out the website and all the socials and so forth. Again, looking forward to, promoting up the tours here they do during the summer for you're out in the area again. Definitely again. I know you're not local, but again, this is still supporting local, right? This is getting the word out there. There's a lot out there. Social media does help. Internet does help. But again, to get out there again, listen to that, the music there, as I was talking about, the self titled track there, CloZure. And again, looking forward to the video too. So that's actually really cool stuff that's coming out here. So definitely give them a follow, like, subscribe. All the business, the same stuff that I always talk about. That I'm going to mention right now. So check out Drums and Rums podcast. Give it a like, review. Again, reviews are really important on Apple Podcasts. So give us a rating, give us a review, because that's what sponsors look at. That's what advertisers look at. Mike will tell you it is, as much as it kind of sounds crazy, the views, social media does mean a lot, because that's what sponsors, that's what advertisers, that's what people are looking at. That means you have followers, you have people, their engagement, because that's what people look at to say, all right, is this a particular product, etc., that people want to follow or we should support or put money into or whatever the case may be. So definitely check out the Drums and Rums on Apple Podcasts. Rate, review, follow. It used to be subscribe, but rate, review, follow. And follow social media, Facebook, Instagram, and all those places there. Subscribe over on our YouTube channel. So we'll be dropping, this video will be posted there on our YouTube channel as well, too. And visit the website, drumsandrums.com. And I appreciate Michael for coming on, man. This is cool. I know we could talk a whole lot more, and we definitely let's make sure we follow up down the road here because I think again there's a lot of stuff, and again I can't wait. We need to meet up here. We need to like drink some rum, and hang out there. So yeah, tell
Absolutely.
so yeah, let's make a wish here. Let's get Michael down to Disney. Have his him and his family come down. We can go hang out at Disney there. Let's make a wish here. Is that wrong? Is that inappropriate to put it that way?
Nah. No, I appreciate you taking the time, brother. I'm glad we
Yeah.
were finally able to get this knocked out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for coming on, and glad I learned about a new band, new drummer to follow and check out. Be part of the, as like I said, part of the part of the family here. A lot of great other bands, and part of this whole mix and craziness that I pulled together, which I'm not quite sure what exactly it's all about, but hopefully everyone else does. So
Works.
yes, for sure. So thank you all for listening to the podcast. There, have a great night, y'all. Cheers.